It's a lens.
But, you talked about privacy just now, Jeff, and I know you've been a big fan of this. And, the two worlds that you live in, the ability to actually resolve identity or an entity is also kind of very deeply linked with privacy. So let's just take a step maybe a little bit deeper into this whole idea of entity resolution, right? And, we briefly touched upon the fact that it's at the core of everything that you do. And, you have many people pretending, you have the fraud, obviously, but you also have, but I don't know now, for example, when I go onto a site, whether the review is a real one, whether the person I'm dealing with is a real person or not. How do you actually use, how important is identity resolution? And could you share a few examples of how you're working towards solving, I'm not going to say world peace, but solving some real problems around identity?
When it's a fake person, it's a synthetic identity. And so one way is that you find lies in data. If I were to tell you a lie right now, like if I told you I'm 51, you wouldn't know whether that was maybe true or false unless you had some other data to compare it to. So the way you find lies in data is you take a claim or an observation, and then you find other data to compare it to. And that's how you find disagreement, dissent, and lies. And so that holds true with entity resolution as well. But that's in the case of like a synthetic. One of the projects that's entity resolution heavy is the work our software is doing voter registration in the US. The US is a very mobile population. Pre-pandemic, heard of that, changed everything. But people move every 5 years on average. And when people move, they forget to unregister. So they move from Colorado and then they go to California and then they register in California, but they forget to unregister in Colorado. You end up with more people on the voting roll than live there. Now, you can still be on the roll if you own property, but you just can't vote in a federal election. And so, but it brings discredit to the election rolls because someone will go look at it and there's people that don't live in the state. That's just because people forgot. That's an entity resolution problem. And so a nonprofit uses Senzing's entity resolution to take voters and Department of Motor Vehicle data, which just gives you a secondary data point, help match better across 2/3 of the country is doing this, over 30 states. And what it does, it allows the nonprofit to reach out to Colorado and say, hey, this voter apparently is moved to California. You might want to communicate with them and see if they still want to be registered.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a big topical issue right now, obviously, given where the US election has been. But here's a case of, I think, where you're trying to use the identity to resolve, in a sense that, for good, non-profit situation. Are there any other such examples where, for example, I know it's very big in security. I know it's very big in KYC, etc. And all of these are now becoming increasingly complex because people are very good at synthetic identities. Am I right?
Did you say people are very good at synthetic identities?
At creating all these kinds of things. And yes, maybe there's a better, how does the algo actually go out? Because no matter what I do, if I create 6 IDs, there is some part of me that's that's going to leave a trace, right? So how do the algo actually work in resolving that all of this is actually one person? That's me.
Yeah. I don't know, how many email addresses do you have that are active?
That are active, probably 4, but I probably have some 9 or 10 which are lying around and never deleted them or don't use or whatever.
Yeah. And, I have 4 too. And it's very common in communications and transactions to use different channels. You use your work credit card to purchase this, personal credit card for that. You'll use your, this email address for these communications and this for that. Then you'll jump over and be talking to somebody on LinkedIn. And so it's a multi-channel system. If something wants to, if you want to understand your communications with even one of your friends, you might actually have to go personally aggregate that and look across these different channels to figure out what you've been talking to them about. You've been saying this on Signal, this on Facebook, and this is happening to businesses. and the data is scattered. And some people, interestingly, intentionally do channel separation because they're hiding stuff. No one, we had the diesel fuel fertilizer and the truck, right? And they made a bomb. Like, I suspect nobody goes and buys a ton of fertilizer, a ton of diesel fuel, and rents a moving truck, on the same day with the same identity. They probably don't do that unless they're idiots. And by the way, you and I do channel separation. If I were to email you an encrypted document and then call you with the password or use a different channel, that's channel separation. And so one of the roles of entity resolution is to do channel consolidation. You have to know, is it 3 different people with 3 transactions or one person with 3, is it 3 people each with 1 transaction or 1 person with 3 transactions? You can't find risk or opportunity and make good assessments if you can't see the difference between that. And the technique that we use, just to fast forward, is called entity-centric learning. What that means is, as record 1 and 2 find each other, because the names are similar and the address is close, so messy, maybe one of the records had an email and the other one had a phone number, and now you've just learned both. So both records kind of have learned off of each other. And now with that richer view, you can find yet another record, and now you've learned their middle name. Then you learn a nickname, then you learn an AKA. So you're assembling over time, like in a resume, the different attributes. And you're using that union of that view to find more records that are the same, as well as help you realize when it's not the same.